Hi guys, this is Rosie Cutie 1995 and welcome to this video. And from what you can see from this title, I will be giving you guys the list of the top 5 best episodes of Thomas's Magical Adventures. For this list, we will be looking at the best episodes from my series voted by you guys. So, let's get started. Starting off at number 5, Episode 5. Thomas gets his coaches. So we start off with the really useful engine we adore. No pun intended. Episode 5 was fun to do back then, even though I was still new to making a series, because obviously I had no background or track. I was not the best at writing back then or editing, so I had to use old Windows Movie Maker. And obviously I had some old friends helping me with a story or two. But anyways, this episode was done back in 2014. It was about the time of the death of the actor who played Billy Two Feathers in Thomas and the Magic Railroad. His name was Russell something. What was it? Russell Means, sorry. Yeah, Russell Means. Oh, my brain just went fried then. I couldn't remember. Even though he passed away in 2012, I thought I'd do something 4 years later. No, 2 years later, sorry. Of him, his passing. So I thought, oh, you know what, I'll do something for him. Because I was only young back then. I was only like 18, 17 back then. Anyways, this episode, obviously, like I said, it was done back in 2014, and did I predict that Thomas was going to meet Annie and Clarabelle before he had his branch line? I don't know, but this episode was this episode was like, done, I believe, 2 years later, 2 years before The Adventure Begins was a thing, or 3, I can't remember. But the plot basically about this episode is Thomas just wants to pull coaches, but the big engines think he's too small, and Thomas gets lost on an old branch line. That's where he met Annie and Clarabelle, and they tell Thomas their backstory of their old line, and originally Edward run that line, and they were his coaches. So Thomas helps Annie and Clarabelle out and put them in store, bring them back to life, not back to life, being restored, and now he's running the branch line. So yeah, basically the big engines and Gordon have to fetch their own coaches, and that continued 3 years later then, back in 2016 I think, or 17, I can't remember. But anyways, this story was fun to do, even though I rarely had taken plays back then, and I was using my fog machine for the first time that time. It was fun. Number 4, Episode 7, Troublesome Teenagers. This one was a interesting one to do, but it was fun at the same time. It was because, one, I was moving into my brother's old bedroom by the time that happened. And as you can probably see from some scenes, there was a few empty walls that was in my old room doing the recordings, like from the chases. And I've used Lego for the first time. So this episode just focuses on James and Percy and 2 teenagers, Nigel and Richard. And this is the first episode that me and Shadow Knight 232 have wrote together. And that's how he joined the really useful crew. Now I'm only joking. It's not the really useful crew. So the plot is basically after 2 lads caused trouble for James. First they threw paint on his dome and set him fire to a workshop where he was inside. And then they were stealing Percy so they can have a ride. And then obviously at the end of the episode, Percy and James make amends after they were arguing about these lads, and yeah, you can probably tell by the end of the episode, it doesn't work well at the end. This episode was also done back in 2014. This was when I had a new narrator, but sadly he's not with us anymore, like he's out of the fandom. But seeing from the votes, I think people like this episode because of the characters and the story in general, including the chasing and the rescue. And hopefully in the future we will be seeing Nigel and Richard again very soon. We'll have to wait and see. And number 3, episode 21, Rosie's Misunderstanding. Yes, the first episode of series 3. And this is when I got my series back on track, about 2 years later, went that year. No pun intended, obviously back on track stuff. So this episode is also focused on Rosie and also a little bit of Edward. And yes, I do love these two characters being together, not as a couple live, like a great duo, like, yeah, a duo. I call them as a duo because I just love the characters. They're both my favourite characters ever in the show as well, so. In this episode, it's about Edward shouts at Rosie after failing her shunting test, because obviously Rosie didn't do it, obviously she let the boys do it. And then after Rosie and Edward had an argument, Rosie goes off to do something else, and in the end, she and Edward started talking about things and talking about things and over, and then they're alright at the end. This episode was not only the beginning of the 3rd season, I was improving with stuff. One, I was using Photoshop this time then, but I was very, very rusty with some of the animation. Like, there were some shots that were very lazy, very rushed, but that's how the best thing about when you're doing something new, you start to improve. And secondly, I was using Adventures for the first time for this episode, and that's now currently for the series. Also, it's a new track, a new backdrop, and the best bit, I think, in my opinion, a brand new intro. Now, people asking, like a couple of people have been asking me, like, off YouTube and all that, like saying, how did you make the intro? And I'm like, well, it's just from a soundtrack. I just added the clips the audio and instrumental, and I just sang as I go along, but in English. So, yeah, and I just thought it'd be a good idea for a fresh start. And you guys seem to like the intro, including Edward and Rosie's story together. I just love their bond, and I just love the ending that I've done with these two, like, especially with the cherry blossom forest at the end. I just thought that should be something nice for a change on the branch line. Like, I just thought, yeah. And yeah, it was fun to do. I love this episode so much. It's one of my favourites. And for number 2, episode 2, Rosie Storm. This episode, well, I was not expecting it to be at number 2. I was kind of, well, to tell you the truth, I thought this was going to be number 1 for many, many reasons. One, Edward and Rosie's bro and sister thing. Yes, I know they aren't bro and sister in real life. It's just their friendship. I think they're like brother and sister. They're kind of like siblings in my series. It will probably be explained soon for an episode in the future. Number 2, 15-year-old me, when I was doing this story, I was so bad at rubbish writing. I did not like my editing. I had no microphone. I had to use a ruddy camera because I did not afford money back then. And then, yeah, like as well, rarely some very bare sets, and yeah, an animation too. But there's one thing I am thankful for this episode is the views. This episode is the most viewed episode of all time. I can't remember how many in general, but I know it's the most popular episode for like in years to come. This episode was done in 2011. And also, I just loved Edward and Rosie's relationship that I put up in the story. It's just basically a little engine being lost while she's out in a storm, and she wants to prove that she's proving that she's brave, but secretly she isn't. And then, obviously, the old engine, Edward, finds her in the end, and they make amends. But overall, it was great. It was a great episode to work with, even when I was still in school, but I was nearly finishing back then. When I was when I was just about to graduate. But overall, everyone, you seem to like this episode, and you love the bond between Edward and Rosie in this story. And I love it too. Now, before I get to number 1 for the best episode of my series, voted by you guys, here are some honourable mentions that sadly did not make it into the top 5. Episode 1, Edward and the High Bridge. Episode 3, The Ghost of Halloween. Episode 9, Henry's Cat. Episode 14, Stanley's Baby Delivery. And Episode 19, Gordon and the Streamlined Engines. Now, some of these votes were very, very close to the top 5, especially with episode 14. It was very close to being at number 5, but just by one vote. It's sad. If it was like a top 10, it would have been on there, but sadly, these episodes did not make it, and I'm very sorry. But if I ever do more episodes in the future, I'll definitely do a top 10. So, without further ado, the number 1 best episode of Thomas's Magical Adventures, voted by you guys, is Episode 10, The Magical Engine of Muffle Mountain. This I was not expecting either. To be truthfully honest, like I said, I thought Episode 2, Rosie Storm, was going to be number 1, but no! You guys voted for Episode 10, and I can see why. Because not only it was the season finale of Series 1, it's because I introduced Lady in this story, and its focus is on James. And, yes, I ship Lady and James. Fight me, bro! Fight me! So, basically with this episode, it's about James hearing a whistle in the wind. The engines don't believe him until James goes through some magic buffers, and then he arrives on Muffle Mountain, and that's how he met Lady. And I love about this story as well, how me and Shadow Knight 232, we did Lady's backstory as well. I thought it'd be nice for a change, how she got to she worked on Sodor, and how she got back to Muffle Mountain. So, and I thought for a change, because I had an Urtle Neil back then, and I thought, oh, you know what, I'll add Neil in here, because Neil's awesome. And, this was the time as well. Obviously, I was still in my brother's room. I was still working on, preparing to move in there, obviously. And obviously, of course, I was getting used to using, a brand new software. I can't remember what it was called now. It's Premiere, no, not Premiere Pro, Platinum Stage. It's like Sony Vegas. But overall, this story was so much fun to work on. Some sets were some were okay, but the rest I really enjoyed. Obviously the Magic Railroad bit with all the thorns, and the forest bit, the Muffle Mountain bit, which was it was fun and it was great to work, but I just used a towel and some fake trees and rocks. That's all I've used. And then I was using some more effects, like the fire in Lady's firebox, and the glow around her, and the glitter and sparkles. That's more green screen stuff. That's why I was improving a little bit more, but still. And this was also the time I was still using no track and barely any backdrop. and I really enjoyed the casting with some of the characters in this episode. Like, obviously, James's character was fun to work with. Lady's voice actress I love so much, and she's done an amazing job, and she was the perfect voice for Lady. Like, I was originally going to voice Lady because there was rarely any females in the fandom back then, but now, as the years went by, there's been some more females, and that's really great. The comedy between Ari and Bert was a fun one as well. Like, even though the same guy who did the narrator, including Donald and Douglas, basically voiced himself, like talking to himself in all of this. But it was great seeing some old faces as well. Like, there was like Duck and Edward, Gordon. Even the trucks were funny as well. I did the voices for the trucks, the high-pitching stuff I just did editing, and oh my god, I do cringe at those stuff now that I did with the high-pitched chipmunks voices. So hopefully in a couple of years' time they won't be there now. But the best thing I really enjoyed with episode 10 as well is the music I used. It was so fun, and I was using more of the smoke machine as well, and some casting made their debuts. Like, obviously, Butterfly Coffee, she made her debut. I think Gabe Machine made his debut appearance as well, voicing Peter Sam. I can't remember. It's been a very, very long time, but I remember who I cast who many years ago. But overall, this was a fun finale to do. If you remember, after the credits, there was a clip with Diesel 10. There was going to be a film after this, but I decided to cancel that, and that's going to be like an episode instead. But Diesel 10 is sadly not going to be in it. I will try and plan something with Diesel 10 in the future. I don't know when, but overall, this episode is another popular episode. This was done back in 2016, I think. 2016, I believe it was 2016. So as you can see, guys, episode 10, The Magical Engine on Muffle Mountain, is the #1 episode of Thomas and Magical Adventures, voted by you guys. And that is it. I'd like to say thank you all so much for voting, and don't be too disappointed if your favourite episode did not make it to the list. Like, obviously, like I said, pick 5 episodes of your favourite, and then I'll see which votes have been the most voted, and then they'll be in the top 5, like I said. So, I don't know what will be the next moment or top 5 I should do next for my series. If you'd like to make a suggestion, I could write it up in the book. So, this is Rosie the Cutie 1995 signing off, and bye!